All right, seeing it is 8 o'clock, I will call the January 21st, 2021 school board meeting to order. Member Clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Member Corcoran?
Here.
Member Corcoran is here. Member Ketto?
Here.
Member Ketto is here. Member Olson?
Here.
Member Olson is here. Member Rayfield?
Here.
Member Rayfield is here. Member Tyson?
Here.
Member Tyson is here. Member Peterson?
Here.
Member Peterson is here. And Member Luthner is here.
All right, thank you, Member Clerk. We'll move to agenda item number 3, reports. At this time, we're going to postpone the certificate of participation report to the February 4th board meeting. So we will move right to the COVID-19 update with Dr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Typically, the mid-month meeting, we don't take a report from the superintendent. We get to business and we call it a night. But this is an unprecedented year, as we all know, and keeping these updates in front of you, I think, is important. So I'm going to take no more than a few minutes to give you a quick update on a few different items related to our school models and adjustments that are in place now and happening as we speak. So, in a way, and a few updated adjustments as well. Before I get into those, again, I'll put in front of you the decision-making consideration factors that guide our decision-making. These factors, while evolving in relevance, to be quite honest, are still relevant. We look at all of these different factors, including county data, test positivity rate, local cases, of course, person-to-person spread now that we are back in school at some levels and soon to be at all levels. School cases, our ability to staff and operate our schools remains a really key factor that we monitor and watch very closely. But there's some extremely good developments on the county case levels. We're asked to pay less attention to this at the elementary level, increasing mitigation efforts. But you can see here that the mitigation efforts, the county data is trending in a really positive direction. We went into distance learning at the peak, and since that time, after Thanksgiving, the cases have gone down rather dramatically. You can see a little bit of an increase here with the 2-week report that came out today. I believe that that's going to be indicated as being related to the winter break, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year break, but still, with the dramatic increase in the amount of testing, we are seeing total cases at the county level similar to where we were seeing cases at the start of the school year. Mm-hmm. As you've heard me say a number of times, the test positivity rate is perhaps the most relevant statistic for us to look at because it's independent of the level of testing. You can see the spike here that's consistent with the time frame of the spike on the previous slide. And that is the level of cases that is being identified as positive with respect to the number of tests that are being given. Since that time, the test positivity rate has gone down dramatically. And I would tell you that the test positivity rate today was at about 3.5%. Mm-hmm. That is the lowest test positivity rate that we have seen since the start of the school year. Mm. What that would indicate is that the level of COVID across the state is at the lowest level. I know we're seeing states, California included, that are seeing the highest hospitalization rates that they've ever seen, but we're not seeing that in Minnesota. So the mitigation efforts, the bars and restaurant and gym closures, the adherence to the guidance, all those factors have to be making a difference to get the test positivity rates that we're seeing. And we're seeing a similar trend at the local level as well, with the peak around that Thanksgiving time, and then a precipitous decline in cases even at the local level since that time. So those of you with elementary students in pre-K through 3 know that we are back in person. I was in several schools today and in and out of kindergarten classrooms and first and second grade classrooms. and kids are excited to be back. I know families are excited to have kids back, and so are faculty. Our staff are excited to see kids back. We have kids back out of the basement in their bedrooms and now in the classroom with face-to-face learning. February 1st, we'll see grades 4 through 6 back for in-person learning. And then next Tuesday, we'll have our grade 7, 8, and 10 through 12 back for hybrid learning, and grade 9 on February 8th. Unfortunately, based on the guidance and requirements from the state, we can only bring in 3 grade levels at a time in any given school. So in 9th grade, we determined makes the most sense to delay the 2 weeks since we had to identify 1 grade. There's a lot of urgency around getting our older kids back sooner than as soon as possible so that we can get them back on track for meeting graduation requirements and so on. We got some really good news on vaccinations on Monday. The state called an emergency meeting with superintendents and rolled out a vaccination plan. The state is currently wrapping up vaccinations with the 1A group. That's going to be your healthcare providers and folks in long-term care facilities. They're still working through that group, coming to an end, they hope, here at the end of January. But the next group up is Group 1B. That's going to be educators and folks 65 years of age and between 55 and 65. And the state has decided that rather than waiting until they're done with 1A and vaccines are available to set up these vaccination sites and programs, the state's currently identified 9 vaccination sites and have launched a program to begin testing the operation of providing vaccines within these 9 different sites across the state. To do that, they've allocated some of the vaccines for this current round of 1A to feed into that test pilot of these 9 sites. So we shouldn't be too discouraged that we only have 15 vaccinations for the school district. Minneapolis and St. Paul has around 85 vaccinations. Again, the intent is to have all districts participating in rolling their staff into this vaccination process with a prioritization system and then moving those people into these vaccination sites. So currently we're in a pilot concept testing these vaccination sites. The state has given the indication that they expect more vaccinations next week and the weeks after. And if that's the case, we'll see even more vaccinations available for our staff. So some really good news with respect to vaccinations, and the more folks in our system and across the state that get vaccinated, the better off we're going to be and the safer we're going to be with our school models. So some really good developments there, and it's extremely exciting to have our kids back in the classroom. We know we have a lot of work to do to keep kids on track with learning, and our staff are working hard to make that happen. So a lot of good news in that report, and I'll take any questions that you have.
Any questions for Dr. Massey? Member Luthner.
I have a question on the 15 vaccination slots. Now, are those doses that will be given at a Forest Lake area site or one of the 7 big hub sites?
Yep, I believe it's 9 different sites across the state, 2 metro. The metro sites are Brooklyn Center and Anoka. And our folks, what we do is we've had to prioritize our staff and then identify the first 15. They get an email from us with a link to register. Once they register, the state communicates with them on the site they should go to and the time slot that they have.
Okay.
And it's up to the employee to make that happen at that point.
Okay.
All right. Member Tyson, then Member Rayfield.
Yeah, Steve, I did listen to some of the call, and I'm just curious if you would know, how did they come around to picking those 9 testing sites, or those 9 sites?
Yeah, I believe part of it is the ability of these sites to at some point handle large volumes of people, parking, flow. There's a wait period after the vaccination, so you've got to set up all those different pieces. So you've got to be able to stand up the operation, and the sites have to be conducive for that, and they're spread out throughout the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Massey, I guess my question, thank you. Dr. Massey, my question would be, how are the teachers doing with transitioning back into the hybrid model and with the distance? And, it seems like we were kind of getting a nice momentum with the distance learning, and now we're switching again. How's that been going?
This week we're back with elementary kids fully in person, so that's every day. I heard one staff member today in a school said it's almost like we didn't skip a beat. Kids are right back in their mode. Clearly there's some adjustment getting back in, but our staff are well accustomed to in-person learning, and that's a relatively smooth transition back. Next week we're back in hybrid. Secondary kids, Monday, Wednesday are the maroon days, Tuesday, Thursday, the gold day, and then a full synchronous day on Fridays. There will be, I think again, there'll be some logistics and transitioning for that, because we are expecting that every kid is synchronous or in person. Every kid, every class, every day. So home day is not work at your own pace. When you're at home, you're logging into your schedule and you're attending virtually. So there'll be some adjustment with that, and staff are working with the best tools we can provide and making the best of a challenging situation.
Member Ketto?
Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, how did we prioritize the 15? Not to go into a lot of detail, but I mean, I just wonder how we got to 15, because that's such a low number. How do we prioritize them?
Yeah, it's once we prioritize, it's the first 15. The prioritization is following state guidance, where they've asked that we prioritize staff that are currently working with kids. Keep in mind, there are some districts that are still in distance learning and having a few kids come in, so that would be their priority. In our case, our pre-K 3 are the first group in this week. So we started with that group, and we identified all staff members that are interacting with kids. And as we've talked about internally, if we talk about who's most important, well, then it depends upon the question that you ask. If the question is who's most important to teaching kids how to read, well, that's going to be a classroom teacher. If it's who's most important to operating the school system, well, that's bus drivers, it's paras, it's teachers. No one is more greater in the operation than anybody else. So bus drivers and teachers are on the same list, and then we're asked to prioritize our oldest population down through our youngest. So we're really, at this point, those working with pre-K 3, starting with our oldest and then working our way down the list.
Member Luther?
Okay, I have an equipment question. With the synchronous learning, kids in the classroom, kids at home, do the teachers have enough microphones or whatever equipment they need to be able to be heard through their masks, through the computer, while potentially also wandering around? I think when they're sitting at their computer teaching, that's one thing. But when they have a classroom full of kids too, do they have that equipment? I mean, has that needs assessment been done, or are we just sort of waiting?
I think that's a really good question. At this stage, we are using laptops and the mic and the camera on the laptop and positioning it so that the teacher is able to work within that confines of that laptop. One of the benefits, if you will, is it keeps the teacher in the front of the room and not becoming a close contact with kids in the classroom. And to be honest, it is far from ideal. But our goal right now is to get to the end of the school year, keeping kids together and engaged the best we can with the tools that we have. They're sufficient. They're not high tech in that regard, but they are sufficient for what we're asking staff and kids to do.
Okay.
Member Tyson, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I wanted to ask Steve, you were in the buildings today and that had to be so much fun. I realized that I've missed, visiting the PTO meetings and PTA meetings and the classrooms as well. And I'm just curious if you saw how the new mitigation was working for teachers with the mask and the shield. Did that seem to be functioning well for them?
It does. The state modified the requirement for the shield. The shields are now recommended, strongly recommended, but optional.
I did not know that.
Yep, and we've adjusted our requirement accordingly. So some staff are using the shield and some are not, and we're allowing for that individual choice there. But staff are really cognizant of distancing the best they can. Teaching a youngster how to read when the student gets stuck from 6 feet is a challenge. So you'll see teachers kind of zero in and then pull back. They're also doing level testing and reading and literacy, and it's hard to do that from a distance, but staff are working really hard to do that. We're also requiring that all grade level meetings, PLC meetings, staff meetings be held virtually so that staff are not gathering and becoming close contacts with one another. The good news is we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. This is for the short term, not the long term. And now that we can see the end is in sight, I think there's greater resolve to just kind of buckle down and do what we can to keep kids in school and do it in the safest way possible.
Well, I just have to add that our teachers are absolutely heroes, given the amount of flexibility and given how the sand is just shifting underneath their feet constantly. So I couldn't be more proud. And the Facebook post of the kids on our district Facebook page was so cute. My little first grade neighbor going out to the bus said, "I'm going to be smiling behind my mask," because she was just so excited.
I was in the office at Linwood this morning when a parent brought her child in for a meeting with the health office assistant, and I overheard her talk about her child and herself dancing in the living room when they realized we were coming back in person. So parents are excited, of course, and our kids are excited. And it's just, you're right, it's great to be back in school.
Member Corcoran?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I've heard some great stories about the kids being back. And I know this is kind of off topic, but I know the summer school email just came out recently talking about summer school. And I just wondered, because I was just actually telling my niece to sign up because I think that there's going to be a huge need for these students that have, had, maybe not the greatest technology and they're falling behind in areas. So are we thinking of really ramping up to have a more robust summer school if we can? Because I think it's going to be needed. And I'm sure you guys are talking about it, but I just want to be able to communicate that with some parents that I know.
Yeah, we set the dates for summer school. We are going to run summer school starting the week after the last day of school and then run all the way through July. We've never done that before. We've extended the length of summer school for that very reason, that kids need more time on learning due to the gaps and the time that we've lost in learning since last spring. The emphasis for learning will be literacy and math, and of course, social connection and that kind of thing. But it's a real intense focus on literacy and math at the elementary. At the secondary level, high school will be credit recovery for kids that have lost credit due to all of our shifting models and the pandemic. And Member Tyson, I appreciate your comment on teachers and heroes. I think you would agree that our bus drivers, our cooks, our custodians, our paras, our staff across the board are equal heroes in that regard.
Absolutely.
All right, do we have any further questions? Hearing none, we will move on to the agenda item number 4, the consent agenda. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing any discussion? Hearing none.
I just want to say shout out to Kimberly Webb retiring after 29 years. That, you know, our teachers are amazing and how long that they stay and are committed to our district.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. 29 years in our system. It's awesome to have that kind of tenure and stability for our students and parents to know. The number of teachers I've been fortunate to have my adult daughter who's 23 have that now my 12-year-old son is having has been great. So it's nice to see that tenure. So with that, any other questions or comments, discussion? Hearing nothing. Member Clerk, would you take a roll call?
Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye.
All right, we'll move on to action items. 5.1, permission to request proposals for life and long-term disability insurance. Director Martini?
Thank you. Good evening. We are going to ask your permission for RFPs. We would open the RFPs March 1st, 2021, and bring them to the school board. So we'd ask you tonight to take a roll call vote granting us permission to do so.
Do we have any discussion on 5.1?
I have a question, Larry. Is this insurance that employees can purchase themselves?
With life insurance, that's provided per the employee agreement.
Okay.
Then long-term disability is purchased by the employees so that should the proceeds ever need to be delivered, they're not taxable.
Got it.
Any further discussion?
Do we have a motion on the table?
Oh, further questions, I guess. At this time, I'd entertain a motion.
So
5.1.
moved. So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none.
Anticlimactic.
What's that?
That was anticlimactic.
Hearing none. Member Clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Roll call as requested. Member Olson?
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield?
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye. Member Tyson?
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson?
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran?
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto?
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye.
All right, motion passes. We'll move to 5.2, permission to request proposals for medical self-insurance programs. Director Martini.
Thank you again. We would solicit proposals for our medical insurance programs, the third-party administrator, the stop-loss insurance, and we would be opening those RFPs March 29th, 2021, and then bringing the results to the school board. And we'd like a roll call vote for permission to ask for RFPs.
All right, do we have a motion to approve 5.2?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion? Member Rayfield?
Yeah. Director Martini, how often have we switched? Is it pretty consistent that we stay, or is it, do we switch a lot? I don't even recall.
Well, we now have the Health Insurance Transparency Act, which requires us to go out every 2 years. Prior to that, for all of our other insurances, the law is you must go out every 5 years. Specifically to your question, since I've been in the school district in 2001, we've worked with Medica on a fully insured basis. We worked with Preferred One on a fully insured basis, and we are currently working with Preferred One on our self-funded program. Our stop-loss reinsurance carriers have changed probably 3 or 4 times while we've been self-funded.
Right. But with stop loss, then the employee really doesn't see much of a change there.
No, our main third-party administrator, Preferred One, is who they interact with.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Member Raphael.
Aye.
Member Raphael votes aye. Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. And Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye.
All right, motion passes. Seeing nothing under new business, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So
So
moved.
moved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Member Clerk, would you please take a roll call?
Okay, Member Tyson.
Aye.
Member Tyson votes aye. Member Peterson.
Aye.
Member Peterson votes aye. Member Luthner votes aye. Member Corcoran.
Aye.
Member Corcoran votes aye. Member Ketto.
Aye.
Member Ketto votes aye. Member Olson.
Aye.
Member Olson votes aye. Member Rayfield.
Aye.
Member Rayfield votes aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, Steve.